Hello everyone, this is Jinju at kimchimari.com. Today I'll show you how you can make makgeolli at home in just about a couple weeks. Here's my home brewed version. It's a lot more flavorful and complex. Also, alcohol content is a little higher than the store-bought ones. It's wonderfully mild, smooth, a little sweet, tangy, and I love the zing, the little bubbly stuff that it has. So here you can eat with some 보쌈. Makgeolli goes great with that. Here's a picture that shows you the different kinds of makgeolli that you can get in Korea. Muk muchim, the dotori muk, is another great dish that goes well with it. So here are the needed equipments. You need some long spoons, preferably wooden ones, a few bowls. Good to have a colander because we'll be draining some rice, and then a scale. And then some trays to cool the rice down later, and a container to ferment the rice wine in. You can use a glass jar or bottle. I also use a food grade plastic container like this one. Make sure it's bigger than about 3.5 liter size. And here's a steamer that I use, a bamboo steamer with a liner inside, a silicone mat that I like to use. All these are purchasable on Amazon and my Amazon store. We also need like a mesh bag. This is a Korean sambe hemp bag that works perfectly. You can also use a linen cloth. This is my favorite Belgian linen cloth that I use for gochujang and other things that I like to strain. As long as it filters well, you can use other cheesecloth too. So here we have sweet rice. You can also make makgeolli with regular short grain rice. It will make it a little more sour and less sweet, and harder to have a successful fermentation, but totally doable. So this is nuruk. This is the fermentation starter made from wheat. And there are different brands that you can buy. The one that I showed you are the ones available in the US. And then of course we need water. This nuruk is something that I buy from Korea whenever I visit. It is of good quality. So if you can get that, that's great. Just to show you what it looks like, this is how the wheat is fermented, and it comes in that round disc shape, but it's broken up before it's packaged. And you can still see those whole wheat grains, and it's good to soak them in water because they're all very dry, and once you soak them it will sort of break apart easily, which is good for fermentation later on. So here's just a close-up. Okay, well, let's get started. So for 1 kilogram of sweet rice, we want to rinse them quite a few times. As I said in that text before, traditionally they say 100 times, but we just can't do that, and I think the rice is much cleaner these days. So I rinse overall about 7 times. You can do more if you want. And you'll see, basically you want to rinse it until the water runs pretty clear. Not completely clear. Maybe if you do 100, I'm sure it'll be completely clear, but I find that it's really not necessary. Okay, so once the water runs pretty clear, like it here at rinse 7, then we're going to soak it for 2 hours. And then once it's soaked, you want to drain it and let it drain for about good 20-30 minutes. And by the way, I have a post about reusing the rice water, so if you don't want to waste it, then check out that post. Okay, so bamboo steamers, it's great to soak them in the water first for about 20 minutes or so, so that when you steam it, and this is what we do when we make duck, when we steam duck in the bamboo steamer, because if it's too dry, then the water content will be different. So instead of the silicone liner, you can also use a Korean hemp sambe liner, and they all work great. So let's pour the rice, the soaked rice, into the bamboo steamer. Level it out as well as you can. And there we go. And then we're going to cover it, put the lid on, and then I have a pot of boiling water ready here. So you should have the water boiling already. And then put the bamboo steamer with the rice in. And another tip is to use wet a towel and cover it. It keeps the steam inside better. So after steaming for 40 minutes, the rice should be all fully cooked. And because we're not using, this is why we steam, because we want the individual rice grains to be easily separate from each other. So if you use a regular rice cooker to do it, it's not going to come out as perfect as this. But if you really don't have a steamer, you could make a very dry rice as much as you can in the rice cooker, and then let it dry and cool. So here I'm separating out all the rice and doing it gently so that I don't break the rice grains. We want to leave them as whole as possible. That helps with the right speed of fermentation. So, and then about halfway in, about 30 minutes later, you want to turn the rice over. And this is why having 2 trays helps. So anyway, cool it for about an hour to 2 hours until it just feels completely cooled. And while we do that, we're going to start the nuruk. So put the nuruk in the water and let it soak for about an hour. This is not an absolutely necessary step. You can just mix it all together. But through my different trials, I found that soaking it first does help. Oops, and I dropped some rice over there. And my husband is basically telling me that I'm not being careful. Anyway, so we put the rice into the container first and see how they're sticky, but the rice kernels are, the grains are still very intact. Now we're going to pour the nuruk in water onto the rice. And I found this order is kind of important. If you do the other way, if you put the rice into the water, I find, especially for the container that I have, it is harder to mix. Another way you can do it is you can just have it all in a large bowl and you can mix it first and then pour it into a container. But, trying to not wash another bowl here. So anyway, so we're finishing it up. So we have all mixed it in. And at this point, the rice is going to look pretty dry. See how there's no extra liquid that you see. It just seems like, is that right? Is that too dry? But that's how it's supposed to be. Okay, so we want to ferment it in a temperature that's between about 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 to 24 degrees Celsius. And put it in a dark, sort of cool place. Don't put it in direct sunlight. So anyway, you see me kind of struggling to mix because the rice is so dry, but that's how it is on day 1. So after you make the batch, you let it sit overnight, and then we want to mix as much as we can without breaking the rice too much. And then see how dry that is. So we want to clean that up, level it off, and clean the sides, and we'll cover, and we'll do it again next day. And one thing about the fermenting and temperatures. So the warmer the temperature is, and see on day 2, we already have a little bit of liquid on the bottom, which means the fermentation has really started to go well. And we're going to mix it again on day 2. And it's a little wetter, it's more moist, but still a little hard to mix. Okay, so going back to fermentation and temperature. So the warmer the temperature is, it'll ferment faster. Cooler, it will ferment slower. But it's not as simple as that. What I find is when it's warmer, there's more chance of it to sour too quickly without developing the full flavors. So that's why it's really better to do it at those ideal temperatures. I find somewhere in the middle it works best. I failed a couple times trying to do it in the summer. It just went sour way too quickly. So the best thing is to kind of keep tasting it as you go. And by the way, yeah, see all those bubbles? We're on day 3 now. And we mixed it all. And we want to now close the lid tightly and then leave it to just ferment on its own. Now we don't do anything, we just watch and see how it keeps fermenting day 4, day 5 without us doing anything. And you will see more rice sediments go to the bottom and more liquid appear. And it's pretty much done when you kind of see 3 layers. May not be totally equal, but just about. So this is day 7. And this one I did it in the winter time. So even at day 10, it hasn't fully, yeah, see it was low at 67. So it's not fully ready yet. Whereas this one at day 10, with a warmer temperature, it was done. And also, by the way, you can add yeast if you want, about a teaspoon. It kind of is like an insurance. It helps the fermentation to really develop well. So you can, traditionally it's not added, but it's up to you. And I talk more about that in my blog post too. It also gives you a little bit of a different flavor, so you can try it and see which one you like. The one with yeast tends to have less sweeter taste. So now we just poured it out all onto that linen cloth that we have, and we're going to squeeze it out as much as we can. And that's the rice wine. So at this point, it's ready to drink just as it is. Or if you bottled it a little early, like I like to do at day 10, you can put it bottle it, and then keep it in the fridge for up to a few weeks, up to 4 weeks even, and it will slowly ferment over time. So here's my husband. He wanted to appear in the video. He loves makgeolli, and this was from another batch that we did in the fall. So yeah, here you go, you see. And this leftover rice and nuruk mixture, it's as actually, oh there, Spock is there. Nuruk mixture is called jigemi in Korean. And in the old days, servants would mix water into that to make it wine for themselves. Here's one showing where we had bottled it a few days before, and when we opened it, this one I bottled early, and you have to be careful because the bubbles can just overflow like champagne. And this was, I was so sad. But anyway, see how bubbly this is? So depending on what you do, you can totally make it really bubbly like this. Except when you do this, you have to be careful that it doesn't overflow. So you should release the gas every now and then. Here's just a fun little glass that I got from Gwangju-yo, a famous ceramic company in Korea. And they put a little ball inside to make that little ringing noise. And one last bit of info. So when you leave that bottle, you'll see sediments accumulate to the bottom and clear liquid on top. You can just drink that clear liquid only, and it will give you a clearer, not as milky wine. And we call that clear liquid cheongju, and the bottom thicker liquid takju, and the whole liquid wonju. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.